Hello, welcome back, and it's lovely to have you here. Welcome to session 5 of our mindfulness sessions. So last week we talked about wobbling. We also learnt about a new part of the brain, didn't we? We learnt about the amygdala, very important part of our brain. It could save our lives, but sometimes it likes to get involved when it doesn't need to. So the guard dog's on alert when it doesn't need to be. So we talked about what we could do. We talked about resilience, didn't we? And building up resilience. So when difficulties happen, we know how to deal with them. So today we are going to be talking about worrying. So worrying happens to us all. So that's a really important thing to understand right at the beginning, is everybody worries. And today we're going to be talking about what is a worry and then what can we do about it. So let's ask that question. What is a worry? So worry is a type of thought, really, isn't it? So thought is something that happens in our minds. We have different types of thoughts. So worries are a type of thought. So I'm going to share this slideshow with you that will help us understand about worries. Here we go. So we talked about worries being thoughts. And all these quotes here are just telling us really that thoughts are not facts. So we may think when we start to worry, we're building up a story in our mind of maybe what's going to happen tomorrow. And we think it's true because our minds are very good at making us think that these thoughts we're having are definitely true. But we're not mind readers, are we? We're not fortune tellers. We can't see in the future. So we don't know what's happening tomorrow. But our minds like to build up all sorts of stories, and we have fantastic imaginations. So if you probably read lots of books by amazing authors. So I love Roald Dahl. You've probably maybe read Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. There's so many amazing books out there. So our minds are amazing at making up stories. Now, unfortunately, this can be a bit of a problem sometimes. So if we're doing a play the next day, our minds might say, right, you're going to get on the stage, you're going to forget all your lines, everyone's going to laugh at you. And your mind's telling you that as if it's a fact, as if that is what's going to happen. But more often than not, 99% of the time, everything is fine. And those worries were a bit of a waste of time. So our brains just love to make up stories. Like I said earlier, we all worry, and this is partly because our minds are making things up. Now, a worry can sometimes become a little bit out of control, can't it? So if you imagine a worry as being a bit like a small flame, like a match. And if we just watch that match, we don't feed the fire, we just think about our worry calmly and find a solution to the problem and the worry, like a flame, it will just go out. However, if we keep thinking about the worry and adding more worries and building up the story in our minds, it's a bit like adding fuel to a fire, and the fire gets bigger and bigger, and before we know it, it's out of control. So you can see the picture there. Worry starts off quite small, but before you know it, it's a huge bonfire because we've put more thoughts and more worries and built this whole picture up and this big worry in our minds. And it happens. It's very easy to happen because our minds are good storytelling minds. So here's another example, a bit like a snowball. So can you see the snowball at the top there starts off quite small? So that could be quite a small worry. And then you think, and then it gets bigger, you add a little bit more. But what if that happens? And what if this happens? And before you know it, it's out of control. So a bit like a huge snowball going down the mountain, it's out of control. So I've put a picture of a wise owl at the top here because the wise owl is a bit like our prefrontal cortex. It makes good choices. It's very wise. It thinks calmly. So at the time when the worry is small, we could be using our prefrontal cortex, making good choices, thinking about how we could deal with our worry and our problem and thinking of solutions. But as the worry gets bigger and bigger and bigger, by the time we're down here, our guard dog can get involved because your guard dog thinks you're in danger. Because if you're worrying that much, it can start a physical reaction. You can get heart going. You can get feeling really anxious. And that sets your guard dog on alert. What's going on? And remember what we said, you might want the feeling of fighting or running away from the problem or freezing, a bit like a test. So maybe the night before the test, you think, oh, you know, I've studied quite hard, I'm going to do okay. Actually, but I don't feel that confident about this problem. And gosh, if I don't do well in that problem, then it might affect my whole score. And then I won't do very well in the whole test. And then I won't do very well in my future. And before you know it, you've got a huge problem, and your guard dog is going to make you not want to go to that test because you've made it into such a big problem and you feel so awful about it. So we're going to talk about what we can do when we're up at the point when we're recognizing the worry. Okay. So just before we do that, I really like this quote by someone called Mark Twain, and it says, most of the worst events in my life never actually happened. And I can relate to that because so often we build up this huge picture of what it's going to be like, and we tell ourselves, oh my gosh, it's going to be so bad. And maybe before bed, we just can't sleep and we worry. And the next day the event happens and it was fine. So that quote is really interesting, that we worry about so much and actually it often doesn't happen. And 99% of the time it's fine. So we spend all this energy, all this time worrying, and it doesn't even happen. So we need to learn how to deal with worries. So that's what we're talking about today. Now, this is what I really like, this worry tree, because it's a really good practical way of sorting our worries out. So if we start at the top of the tree, the first thing we're going to do is notice we're worrying. And we can ask ourselves, what am I worrying about? So really focusing in, remember about the torchlight of attention, all our attention is really focused on that worry. What is it? What am I worrying about? And then we ask ourselves, is this worry about a current problem, so a real problem, or a hypothetical situation? And that's a big word, just to saying it's a made up story. Is it a real problem or is it a made up story? And you can ask yourself, can I do something about this problem myself? So if the answer is no, because it might be something in the news you're worrying about that you really can't do anything about. So you have to ask yourself, can I do something about this problem? And if you can't, then you have to let that worry go. And we're going to talk about how we can do that in a moment. So once you go down the no route, we let that worry go. We can't do anything about it. So the question, can I do something about this worry? If the answer is yes, then you can make a plan. Okay, so this is your wise owl taking over, your prefrontal cortex. Let's make a plan how we can sort this worry out. What can I do? When can I do it? How could I do it? Okay, if you can do it now, then do it. I like that. It's got an exclamation mark. Just do it. Sort the problem out now if you can, and then let it go once you've sorted it out. If you can do it later, then stop thinking about the worry and schedule a time saying, okay, before bed, I'm going to really concentrate on this worry and I'm going to do something about it, or I'm going to ask my mum for help after school. I'm going to tell my mum about my worry. She's going to help me. So you can make a plan of when you're going to do it and then let it go for then. And we're going to talk about how we can let these worries go, what we can do. Now, the first thing I just mentioned was asking for help. That's a really good way of sorting out a problem. There's a saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, because you've shared that problem and somebody else can help you with it. It might even make you feel better and like the worry's gone just by telling someone about it. So that's something very important you could do, is share your worry with a friend, with a grown-up you trust. Share the worry, tell someone about it, okay? Because that's a really good way of getting it, as they say, get it off your chest. It's telling someone, it's giving it to someone else, it's talking about it. They might help you come up with a solution to the problem. So sharing a problem is really important, sharing your worries. Okay, so what else can you do if you've got a worry? So I've got a couple of practical things to do that I really like to do. So the first thing I do is use my worry box. Okay, so I made this box. It's just an old gift box. Put a hole in it. And what you can do is before bed, if you're feeling worried about something, you can write it down. Because a bit like I said, if you share your worry, even talking it through with someone, writing it down can sometimes be a really nice thing to do. Maybe lots of people write a diary. That's a really good thing to do. Another thing is just focus on the worry. Like we said, think about, what is this worry? Write it down, write as much as you can about this worry, fold it all up, put it in the box. Okay, so it's a bit like you've taken it away from your mind, so your mind can't make any more big stories about this worry and make it into a big snowball or a big fire. Write it down, pop it in the box and let it go. Okay, it's like you've taken it away, you've written it down, and it's in the box now. You don't need to open the box. You can throw it out in the morning into the bin. It's gone. So open up the box, throw out the worries. They're all gone. Another thing you can do. This is my worry monster. You can get these worry monsters, and this got clips. You could even take it with you in a bag or something. And when you're really worrying about something, just think, oh, I know who likes worries, and worry monsters love worries. Okay, so you could write it down, pop it in the worry monster's mouth, shut it away. He's eaten your worry, it's gone. So any way of getting that worry out of your mind, writing it down, putting it away. Okay, worry monster likes to eat the worries. So that's 2 ways you can do it. Another way that's really nice is using our imagination. So I mentioned we've got amazing imaginations, haven't we? So what we can do, and it's a bit like doing a breathing practice, you can sit up nice and tall and just settle yourself down. So we can do this together. So closing your eyes and start to bring your attention, like I said, to the worry. So maybe you have a worry right now. Maybe you don't, which is great. But if you don't, then just think of something that you can pretend that's a worry, or something that's worried you in the past. Bring that worry to the front of your mind, thinking about the worry. And now imagine that worry being surrounded by a white, fluffy cloud. So it's like you're placing the worry onto a big, fluffy cloud. And as you take deep breaths, imagine that worry is now floating. It's floating out of your mind. It's floating up into the big blue sky, and it's floating away. It's gone. It serves no purpose. You don't need that worry, so let it go. Like the worry tree said, let it go. Let the worry go. So opening up your eyes now. I use the example there of a cloud, and I quite like that because clouds float off, don't they? But whatever you think, and let your imagination run wild. You could imagine putting the worry into a rocket, firing it off into space. You could imagine tying your worry to a big rocket, like a firework. Let it go and it explodes. It's gone. Anything, whatever your imagination comes up with, just let your worry be taken away any way it can. So it's like you're taking your worries away from your mind, letting them go. Because worries can be quite bad for us if we have too many. It's not good for us. So we have to learn ways of letting them go. And often either the worry is something we can't do something about, in which case we let it go. If it's something we can do something about, then we can make a plan about it. Like the worry tree said, we can ask for help, we can write it down, we can make a plan about how we're going to solve the problem, and we can use our prefrontal cortex. Lovely. So each time we've had our session, we've done a breathing practice. And that's, again, a really nice way to calm yourself down, because like I said, worries can make us feel very anxious and a bit fizzy. Remember, I showed you the ball with too much going on in our minds, too many worries worrying about, and doing a breathing practice allows everything to settle. And then we can think clearly again. And maybe when we're thinking clearly, we actually can see the worry for what it is. It's a story. It's not real. Okay, so we're going to do today a breathing practice called square breathing, or some people call it 4x4. Okay, so again, we're using our fingers to help us to do our breath. So what we're going to do is simply breathe in for 4, make one side of the square, breathe out for 4, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. So we're making a square, and it just helps us to really visualize and count our breaths. And by counting, it stops thoughts coming into our minds as well. So it's quite a nice thing to do, counting and using our fingers. So in a moment, you're going to close your eyes, and as we start in the corner, we're going to make the shape of our square with our breath. You can imagine your finger can draw a lovely white line, drawing a square using our breath. Okay, so get nice and comfy, sitting up nice and tall, allowing your eyes to close now. Get your finger ready. Before we start, let's just take a nice deep belly breath in and out. So getting your pointy finger ready to start your square, and on an in-breath, Get ready with the in-breath. We're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to go down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out. Breathing in across the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Final side of our square. Breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Let's do it again. Start at the top. Breathing in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4. And across the bottom. Breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. And opening your eyes. So maybe you start with a worry before you do a breathing practice. And by the time you've done maybe 3, 4, 5 squares, once you open your eyes, you might even think, what was I worrying about? Why was I worrying about that? Because you've just had a little break from your worry. So breathing practice is a really good way to get us to stop being in our busy minds, have a little break from the busy thoughts. So what have we learned today? We've learned that a worry is just a thought. It's a story in our minds. And often the worry starts quite small and it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. If we keep feeding the worry, keep thinking about it, adding to it, making it even a bigger story. And it could be like a big snowball gets out of control, big fire. And when we get like that, it doesn't feel very good. And that's when our guard dog might sort of step in and think, you're in danger. You're worrying about this situation so much. I need to be in control here. And then you stop using your prefrontal cortex. So we also talked about what we can do about our worries. We talked about the worry tree right at the top. What is the worry? Can I do something about it? No. We'll use some of the things we talked about to let it go, visualizing it going, worry box, worry monster. If it's yes, then schedule, make a plan. How can I get rid of the worry? When can I, and what can I do? So it might be you telling someone, asking for help, again, writing down the worry, spending some time thinking about it and what you can do. And so making a plan, basically, not just letting it get out of control. Okay. So this week, if you feel like you're getting a worry in your mind, notice it and then start to think, what can I do? You could do a breathing practice, you can talk to someone, you could write your worry down, you can visualize your worry floating away in a cloud, you can up in a rocket. Lots of things you can do before your worry gets out of control. Because often that's when people can't sleep, because these worries, it's like a hamster on a wheel, isn't it? Worry, 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 getting bigger and bigger and faster, and then it gets out of control. And you don't want to get to that point, especially because it probably started off with quite a small little worry and got bigger and bigger. Okay. And if it is a real worry that's worrying you, do share it. Please share it with someone, ask for help, and do some of the things we talked about. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and take care and goodbye.